And this is an idea of challenging ourselves to stay positive, which I think is a good challenge that we should all do often, because it's easy to be negative, especially today. Holy moly.
You're listening to the Corbett Report.
Welcome, friends. James Corbett here, CorbettReport.com, and I come to you with a message of peace, which I hope is apropos to today's conversation. We're going to be talking about a subject that I broached a few weeks ago. I asked the rhetorical question, is there such a thing as positive propaganda? Well, it turns out that question has a very real answer, and the answer is yes. And I know because we're going to be speaking to the man who is behind coining that term as a hashtag and helping to propagate it around the world. We're talking today to Roberto Casanueva of Positive Propaganda People at positivepropagandapeople.com. It's also up on Instagram as a hashtag. I'll obviously link both of those things in the show notes for your browsing pleasure. But let's welcome him on the program. Roberto, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure, James. Thank you.
First of all, I got that right.
To meet you.
Casanueva?
Casanueva. The Roberto part, you do want to change to say bear instead of Bert. It's not Sesame Street. Think of the bear. So Roberto.
Sorry. All right. Got that. All right. Well, let's introduce this to people who may not have seen positivepropagandapeople.com yet. What is this movement and how did you start it?
Yeah, so I studied urban planning and public space in college. So I wrote my thesis on public space and this idea of interaction and where people can gather and be merry and be connected to a community. And I've been in tech for the last 8 years, and I needed like some aspect to continue interacting with people in public. And it's a social experiment, really. And it, 2 years in now, I can see that it's kind of working. So the idea actually started with, hey, can we buy a banner to fly behind a plane that says you are incredible? And how many people within a city would that actually affect, where they would look up and they go, oh my God, somebody spent money on something flying over the city that just says you are incredible. There's no product, there's no sale, there's no go here, do this, bye-bye. It's just ideally for people to feel good. Obviously that was out of our budget at the time. So I scaled it down to art parties. So in essence, I would invite a bunch of people over and we would make signs with stencils and spray paint. And I would ask people, what is something that would, encourage you to keep going, or an aspect of something that's challenging you in your life. What do you need to hear? What would you want to hear? And what do you want people to hear? So it came out organically from these little art gatherings that I would have at my house. And then I did them in the park and barely did any marketing. And people just walked right up to them and jumped right in. This was in Portland, Oregon at the time. And I was putting up these big signs and I realized that like the signs wouldn't always last very long because you're putting them in public space. And sometimes people don't want those in public space. And I quickly realized that to have a larger ripple effect would be to use the flyers and telephone poles, because that's just already done. My missing cat, here's this concert, and now you look fabulous by positive propaganda. So that's how it started. And the whole idea is that there's a call and response. So it was an idea. It was a theory. It was, again, social experiment. I didn't know it would work. I'd hoped it would work. And I added the hashtag positive propaganda to it to ideally be an umbrella that other people could jump into and use. And I remember the first time I saw somebody's photo on Instagram and they used the hashtag, and I was like, oh my God, it worked. So obviously I leaned into it at that point. And
well, I'm imagining that's not the only time that's happened. Obviously it's flowered since then. So tell us about the kind of response that you're receiving and where positive propaganda has been picked up around the country. So I've been in between jobs over the last 2 years. So I've actually moved a number of times, which has been really good for the growth of positive propaganda. So I've been in Austin, Santa Barbara,
Portland, and now San Diego. And also now when I travel, I just bring it with me. So I recently put up some in New York and here in San Francisco. And what I realized is that, I mean, I check it every morning. Like I wake up in the morning and I check it, this hashtag on Instagram, and I just gotten to a point where I could find one every day. And that just blew me away. So every time I give to this, like any energy, it comes back tenfold. It's very, very interesting, cyclical, symbiotic relationship with this effort. And people will tell me that, man, the timing of this sign was just perfect for where I was in my day and what was going on. Recently, I was on the news in San Diego because they found one, and this woman was training for a marathon, and she got to the top of a hill and saw the sign that says, "Nothing is impossible. Go for it." And she pushed a little harder that day and finished her run and then posted the sign because it meant something to her. And I think that if you crystallize the whole thing down, reduce it down, the idea is that, we all have days that are just rough, and there can be some random thing that's from outside of your peripheral, and it just sets you on the right path for the rest of the day because some aspect of cheering you up, or your best friend or your brother or something calls you, or whatever it may be. And I'm finding that that's what these signs are now becoming. They're like these, just reminders in the middle of your day to come back to gratitude, to come back to be thankful, or even funny, good job getting out of bed today, right? Like everybody can be like, yeah, darn right, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back already. And you know what, whatever they're going to do the rest of the day, it's probably going to be better after that moment, right? And that's it. That's the whole idea.
Well, I think we have to address the way that this does, what you put out there does come back to you, because I think the more cynical minds in the audience will say, oh, it's just, meaningless platitudes. Who cares? It's just a sign. It's not going to change the world. Yeah. But, I mean, even the fact that we're having this conversation now and talking to tens of thousands of people who probably have never heard of this before is just because you're looking for it, you're putting it out there, I'm resonating with it, it's now going out there to more people than ever before. This is how this works, and I think you need to explain that to people who may be on the cynical side of this equation.
I think, at the end of the day, it's a social experiment, right? It's a dialogue. I think one of the things that we're struggling with today is just engaging in the discourse. So I'm excited about the discourse, however it wants to come towards me and talk about it and challenge the idea and keep growing it, ideally. Somebody recently said on one of the photos, especially was the good job getting out of bed today one, was like, this is just some elitist millennial stuff where they're just patting themselves on the back. And this is where I would push back on that, is that right now I've created some of these phrases. I asked the world for the phrases, but I don't know what all of the phrases are. I don't know what all of the messages are. I don't. And I don't pretend to. I've chosen some within certain cities that they work. I didn't do the "You Are Loved" one in New York because, I probably were going to be a little tougher. So what I did in New York was "You Are Resilient" and do things that bring you calm, and still good job getting out of bed today, because everyone can relate to that. So I think you have to, right now, I'm really, really toying with the idea of thinking of audiences, being very, very, very aware of your audience when you go into cities, and then bringing the art parties. So these I want to call them more workshops and it's an aspect of art therapy where you go into a community or a school or a neighborhood organization and you say, guys, I'm not here to pretend like I know what's going on with your community, but I'm offering you an equation, a process that could alleviate or, help. So let's try. What are the things you think your community needs to hear? And this is an idea of challenging ourselves to stay positive, which I think is a good challenge that we should all do often, because it's easy to be negative, especially today. Holy moly. So I challenge you, I challenge myself, I challenge all of us that even when you're looking at a crap situation, or it's not a good, look for silver linings, look for ways to be positive, look for the way forward, look for the future that we're trying to land on and how we can support each other getting there. And that's the idea, right? So I don't pretend to know all of the things that need to be said, but I do challenge the world to say, to ask, how can you still be positive about this situation?
Well, one of the things that really appeals to me about this is the decentralized nature of it. That's something that really resonates with me in the work that I do and the things that I believe in, because I think as a social experiment, it is bound to be more successful if it's not about Roberto Casanueva. It's about everyone, and anyone can contribute to it and put out their own positive propaganda and put out the hashtag, and it'll get promoted by other people. That's a decentralized movement at work. And as you say, you don't have a solution to every community. Everyone in the community knows what the people around them will respond to, and that's the best way to spread this out to people. So I'm assuming then the call is for the people who are listening to this conversation to participate in this in some way. How can people get involved with this?
So there's a number of things that I'm starting as of now. I'm in between jobs again, so I have a window to give to this passion project, and I want to ignite it in a way that empowers other people. So I already have people asking me to be ambassadors in different cities all over the world. So if you want to be an ambassador, reach out to me and I will send you a package of stuff that allows you to, one, jump on it and go for it with some of the stuff I've already created, as well as your own ways of doing it. If you're inspired by the idea of adding positive message to your community, do it. I'm not in the way in any way, shape, or form. All you have to do is have a printer and a saying, a phrase of some kind. Go for it. And if you want to be a part of what this umbrella of positive propaganda, changing the way that we look at the word propaganda, add that hashtag. If you want to make it positive Ohio and you're in your own space, do that. It's not about my fame in this. It's more of how can we just get more positive messages in our cities so that when people are walking around, they can have a little more pep in their step. And if you're inspired by that, I'd love to talk. You can easily reach out to me. I have three or four phone calls this week with people on the rest of the country that want to engage. And then in about a week and a half from now, I'm going to start a GoFundMe page to do the first road trip. And I've already found a van company that wants to donate me a VW Westphalia van, of course. And I'm going to have a fundraising page up to pay for art supplies and the PR that I'm going to be doing. I'm paying a PR company to reach out to cities as I go. So stay tuned on that. And really the best thing is to just follow the Instagram page, which is @positive.propaganda. Interestingly enough, there's a mural nonprofit in Munich, Germany that uses the same name that is doing a very similar thing, but they're in Germany doing big art projects, and I'm using words in smaller spaces. And I think the other thing is that as I started doing this, I've found at least 10 to 15 other organizations that are literally doing the same thing. Live a Great Story, the Joy Team out of Oregon, Don't Give Up Signs, also in Oregon. And I feel there's this idea of collective consciousness, and not everybody subscribes to this idea, but there's this idea that obviously in the world, in history, incredible achievements have happened at the same time, and those people couldn't even communicate with each other. So I feel right now there's a collective consciousness of people feeling the negativity of the world, feeling this kind of, just watch the news. And there's a need for the balance to shift. And that was long-winded.
No, but I get what you're saying. And one of the things that really resonates with me is the idea of just having a non-commercial signage of some sort in public space. Every message that we get once we step out of the house is someone trying to sell us, trying to get us to buy something. This is something that's just not commercial. And just for that alone, it's actually good to be reminded we are human beings. There are human beings around us that we can have relations with that have nothing to do with money and buying and incentives like that. So it's good to have that level of human reminder.
And I think that's that takes people a moment. So for me, I see the ripple effect of the hashtag. I don't see the ripple effect of the amount of people that take pictures of it, don't use the hashtag, and I don't see the ripple effect of how many people just walk by it. I find signs, a photo of a sign that's been up 6 months. I haven't lived in Austin in 7 months, and it's still there. Now it's got crazy tape around it, and it's still on the freaking pole. I don't know how many people have walked by that, and that's, to me, that's the beauty, and how many interactions could have happened from it, and there's nothing that sign is trying to get you to buy.
And, it's just there. I love that.
It's just there.
Speaking of inspiration, have you been inspired by positive propaganda from the past? I'm obviously wearing my shirt from the infamous Propaganda for Peace campaign by John and Yoko. But have you had any things like that have inspired you?
I've been inspired by, the Life is Good guys did it a long time ago. I always remember them on the back of Jeeps on the wheel. It said just Life is Good. I've seen, your ego is not your amigo, stuff like that. And again, I haven't seen stuff that's just, I would even challenge John and Yoko, war. You're still saying war on that shirt, right? And this was the biggest thing that I was really annoyed with when I was doing my activist days. Obviously at UC Santa Cruz, I was an activist. I didn't like protests because everybody was yelling about what we didn't want. And I think a much more powerful thing is to create something that we do want, how people can actively celebrate life together and live in peace of different cultures. And if you're against, war, why not have a installation of a, silent dance party where people of different ethnicities are all dancing together? That to me is more profound than a bunch of people yelling about no war. So this has kind of been in the back of my head for a long time, and it just kind of came out. And again, was not preconceived. It was like a random idea. And then every time I gave energy to it, it came back. And it was like, keep doing this, man. And I was like, okay, the universe, the world, or whatever you want to say, was talking to me.
Yeah. And now we're talking.
And I'm more inspired.
Of that process.
Yeah, and now we're talking.
Exactly.
And I'm more inspired by the fact that I'm finding so many other people that are doing it. So, my dream, as this continues, is like to have a positive propaganda or some other name conference where we bring all of us together and we're like, how are we innovating? How are we moving this idea? How are we growing this? That would be incredible. So look for that in 2020.
Well, you just made an exceptionally important point. I hope it didn't get lost on the listeners out there that a message of peace is different than a message of don't stop the war. I mean, those are different ideas, and they resonate differently in the human consciousness, and we should be directing towards the positive side of it rather than we don't want the negative, because that doesn't help us reach the goals that we want. We have to envision and live out the positive. So that's an important point. If there is positive propaganda, it's probably not in anti-war messages, it's in peace messages or something along those lines, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Excellent. I mean, the line from Rent, the musical Rent, the opposite of war isn't peace, it's creation. Mm-hmm. And it's true. Why don't we create those examples of what we want rather than focusing our energy on what we don't want?
Excellent. Yeah. A very good message to leave people with. Just one final question then. When is the plane with the banner going to arrive?
How do I choose a city at that point? I'm very much looking to raise money and to, again, I don't want to put this on the world that this has to happen in this way. I can continue to put signs up in other cities and create ambassadors and that would continue this, and I would be happy with that, and I hope other people would be happy with that. But I would like to do a road trip again from on the West Coast, because I have so many networks here and other nonprofits that I've worked with and networks and friends. And the last city that I would be in, have the plane go over, it was only $2,500. Still a lot of money. That was only in Oregon, though. It might be cheaper in California. Who knows? Roundabout answer. But I would love for that to happen, to bring the culmination around in the last city of the road trip, which will happen in May. I'm definitely throwing gas on this and jumping at it as we speak. Filming and building the GoFundMe. Yeah. Well,
then let's put the challenge out there for people, just as a social experiment of our own. Anyone who's listening to this conversation that resonates with this message, just say something nice and positive to someone else today. Unbidden, uncalled for, no context. Just say something nice. Don't look for anything in return. just put that out there, and we'll see how far that ripple can spread. And then hopefully people will be motivated to join in the larger positive propaganda effort in whatever way comes to them. I will, of course, once again direct people to positivepropagandapeople.com, your Instagram. Any other resources you want to direct people to, or will that do for now?
No, those are the two. And then stay abreast, because the GoFundMe will be coming out next week to start this road trip. And the big thing is that, again, this is a social experiment. So all ideas are welcome, right? I'm not the master of what this looks like or how this is going to grow. I'm just the one that did the last 2 years of it. And it's been going good. So, jump on board, so to say. And then, if you feel inspired, don't hesitate. The world will respond. The ripple effect is real. People really appreciate it. So go for it.
Excellent. All right. Well, words to live by. We'll leave it there for today. Roberto Casanueva, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure, James. Have a great rest of your day.